Every day there's a new model. Every day there's a new tool. There's just so much happening.
AI.
The output is sometimes non-deterministic. So to make everyone understand this whole concept, the necessity, it's more than ever. Because I feel like whoever is in the leading position, you need to understand the ecosystem better.
So as much as governance can be looked at as something that slows down innovation, in reality, it actually provides us clarity on embracing innovation.
There is a misconception, right, that governance slows down the speed. But I think the right word, bad governance slows down the process.
Yes.
But the good governance will reduce so much overhead along the...
In the future.
I think we start accepting that the evolving nature of it. It cannot be ever complete that, okay, we are done with the structuring. We cannot avoid the need of tool here. It's kind of a chicken egg problem, right? Like we are
Yes.
governing AI using AI.
Yes.
But again, we cannot avoid that.
Hi everyone, welcome to What the Tech, the podcast that breaks down complex AI and technology concepts, explores real-world applications, and brings you thought-provoking conversations on the future of technology. Today, we're very excited for our episode as it really brings together our series that we've been covering in the age of AI. In the last two previous episodes, we covered leadership as well as product management. And today, we're going to dive deeper into the multidisciplinary nature of AI in terms of the governance aspect. And we've got a fantastic guest to help us run through that. And we're looking forward to really unpacking what AI governance is, what cross-functional teams really means, and why it's very important for us to position ourselves from idea to implementation in a strong governance framework, or rather with a strong governance framework. So let us welcome our guest. Shaila, welcome.
Hi.
Thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. So we'll dive straight into it. What first drew you into AI, and more specifically AI leadership? And your focus area isn't necessarily governance, but what also drew you into the governance space, and why was it important?
I'll start with my background. Saying I have a PhD, and usually after PhD we go for research track, but that's not always true. It also depends on the opportunity. So naturally I started my career on research, and that was industry research. That was in IBM. So that kind of gave me the option to apply the research outcome in the industry or in the real business problem solving aspect of it. So why I feel like whatever I'm doing has very important thing to do with that part, because that kind of gave me a very extreme spectrum, end of the spectrum of the things, because things start there and then there are many more steps like to keep it forward and actually apply it to the real world problem. So I think that was a good start for me to understand how things actually work. But my career progression is not that linear. It kind of went all over the place. After the research, I also worked as a consultant, where I was almost at the opposite extreme end of things, like where I'm advising the clients what to do without doing things. So I'm seeing the business problems a bit more. But then also I worked as an engineer, where I really put things in production. I also did the coding part. Why I think that kind of naturally gave me an opportunity to understand the ecosystem better, because I feel like whoever is in the leading position, I don't call myself a big leader or anything, but whatever, you need to understand the ecosystem better. So that research work, consultancy work, and engineering work, I felt like gave me a bit of opportunity to understand each bit, and that gave me a better idea of the ecosystem.
So that depth and breadth.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. And so in terms of specifically governance, what drew you to governance, and why is it that you're now an advocate within your current roles, or rather your current role, for AI governance cross-functionally?
Yeah. So that also comes with experience. So in one of my work, when I worked as an engineer, so I had the opportunity to put things in production. So solving a business problem using AI, as simple as that. But while doing so, I had the experience of the whole process. For example, everything started with buying in from the leadership team, right? Because people don't want to do AI. They want to solve a business problem.
Yes.
Then they can apply AI to solve that. So first thing is from the leadership team, or basically in a simple term to say, whoever is financing this project, they need to buy in that why we are doing this.
So an executive sponsor.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. So that you can already see why the cross functionality is coming into place. Like they first need to buy in that, okay, we want to do that. But then if it's a product company, again, it's a very very diverse ecosystem. So if it's a product company, if you are working for a product, then the product management team who basically decides what they want for the product, they come into place.
Yeah.
So that's another discipline we are seeing here, like the product management. And then definitely the tech team comes into place. And inside tech team, you can again divide it into many different sectors, like core programming or core development, a bit of research-ish, or data scientist alignment is there. So I would say it's nothing very, very different than traditional software development. But it's a bit complicated because of the nature of AI.
Yes.
The output is sometimes non-deterministic. So to make everyone understand this whole concept, it's more than ever the necessity is.
Okay. And so now when you're dealing with those cross-functional teams, you need to now have an aligned understanding of what governance means. So how would you define cross-functional governance if you were communicating it to that team, although across those teams?
Yeah. So this is, I don't know if the ideal solution still exists. I mean, we are still uncovering what it means. But few things, like I try to think in this way, that irrespective of the business problem we are trying to solve, the organization has their own strategy or own vision or maybe their own principles.
Yes.
So that is the first step to me, that define those first.
Okay.
And then there should be proper structure so that those principles can be applied. So I'll give a quick example. For example, in very regulated environment, say we need access to some data, for example. It's not AI related topics, but I'm just saying we need access to data. So there are currently very good process involved, like who is accessing this data, what is the exact permission for this user. So those are very well-defined structure in place. Obviously, people understand that we need to track this. Also, the structure is in place. And process. So I try to talk about these three things, all related, but principles come first, then the proper structure in place, and the process. So
but then
three.
sometimes the proper structure, I think that's the biggest challenge, because it can be well structured for like other processes, but when it comes to technology and now with AI, it's becoming extremely difficult to define really like the bottom line of what it means to be a structured team.
Yeah.
I think for me, I feel like the biggest win is awareness, or kind of getting when I say awareness, it's more like having someone in those specific decision making touch points to have an understanding. I mean, in the previous episode we spoke about leadership, so that leadership aspect is also acknowledging that we don't know, and we want to see, we want to actually be aware of what's happening with AI and how we can implement it. The other question is now going to be, you understand what is possible with AI, are you willing to invest time and take the risk, because now it becomes also like another another hard pill to swallow, because it's just not as easy as just saying, oh, let me just get into ChatGPT and get everything to work.
Now you're spot on. Like we talk about structure, like talking about it is easy, But to figure out exactly what structure means is the difficult part. But I think we all have to start somewhere, start
Yes.
small.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be complete. And another thing, I think we will talk about it more, it's that the evolving nature of it. Like it cannot be ever complete that, okay, we are done with the structuring.
Yes.
It will always evolve. So having the room to make the changes is
adapt
also very
accordingly.
important here.
Yeah. So do you think what I mean, one of the biggest challenges that now in this AI age it's happening is things are moving so fast that it's a bit hard for, I mean, like you say, it starts small, but then it's hard for businesses to keep up with the momentum. You know, every day there's a new model, or every day there's a new tool. You know, there's just so much happening, and it's hard for people to. It's like if you want to follow the trend, it moves faster than us thinking about. I mean, if you think about it, right? If you use ChatGPT, if you ask a question, you might have thought about the solution, but ChatGPT gives you, or any other large language model for the sake of it, will give you a deeper answer faster than you would have thought about it. So now if you translate that into businesses trying to do the same thing, is the same challenge, right? So businesses want to, you know, evolve and be able to embrace that, but then the speed at which things are moving are so much faster than it becomes very confusing, and people have analysis paralysis.
But I think that's where we and Shaila, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think that's where we fall back onto those core principles of transparency, fairness, and accountability, specifically when thinking about AI governance, and then whatever actions we have determined as supporting, like practical actions for our teams, whatever actions those are that support these principles, that's what we need to fall back on. So as much as governance can be looked at as something that slows down innovation, in reality, it actually provides us clarity on embracing innovation. So we already know what actions or steps we need to take to ensure that we have trust in the AI solutions we're building or what we're exploring. You won't hesitate, and you won't feel like you can't really go for what you're aiming for as an organization because you're not sure if this is safe. But if you know that, okay, we've got all these guardrails in place and all the teams know what they should do and what they shouldn't do, then they'll feel more confident in going from idea to implementation effectively into production. So I think as much as AI is moving quickly, those principles will remain the same. Trust.
I mean, it's a very similar concept to, you know, if I want to, you know, draw, like kind of create some sort of analogy with sports, for instance. So when you play a sport, when you're during the game, things are happening so fast that for you to think about which action you need to take, by the time you think about it, the action has already passed. So as a player, you need to just keep moving. I guess what helps you to move well during the game is all these foundation work that you've done. So
and you know the rules of the game.
Yes.
If you know the rules of the game, you'll be a more confident player because you know the boundaries that you're playing within, but at the same time you also know the opportunities that you can take within the game.
Yes.
That's a very good analogy, right? And also, though we know the rules, for example, in a sport, there is always a bit of space, breathing space, right? We can deviate from the ideal thing to do, but within a boundary.
Yes.
But to know that is the key, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So now that I think we sort of established that AI governance is about trust, accountability, transparency, and we understand that builds trust for our customers, trust internally, all the various stakeholders. So now we're going to dive a bit deeper into the teams. So what are some of the teams that you typically see on an AI initiative as being the key players for a cross-functional project, and then for these different team members, what is sort of the way of ensuring there's a shared understanding across the group, and also there is an understanding of their priorities as well?
Yeah. That's a lot together. Yeah, yeah. But I think by team, I think we already talked about, like, it starts with the leadership, executive sponsor. Then if it's a product team, it's a product management comes into place, and definitely the tech team. Now the tech team became very not the right word is convoluted, but more diverse than ever, right?
Yes.
Like let's pick an example. For example, I wanna build a feature in a product where people can search and do things. Just basically a improved AI-enabled search function if we want to implement in a system. So many different roles from tech side is involved. Like you start with UI or UX, like who is designing how the users should see it.
Yeah.
But then behind the scene, the core software developers are programming it, like the coding it. But then if you go back to the actual AI solution maker, among those, there are many roles. Like there are people, data analyst, data scientists, all are doing different types of works here.
Yes.
Like data analysts are doing the analysis of data to find the insights. But then with those insights, how the model should work, that kind of goes to the data scientist part. I'm not saying like it means that every person is a different person. One person can play the role of everything. Not everything, but at least the similar ones.
Yes.
But these are different roles, right? Even inside tech one. And also this quality assurance thing. Like in typical or traditional software development, that's a very big thing. And now I am thinking, or my experience is showing that this quality assurance is becoming more important than ever. Because in traditional software development, we could do the testing once and it could go in production and that's it. But in AI project, in most of the cases, that's not the case, right? Even the thing is in production, the nature of it can be very non-deterministic, so you don't know what should be there. So there should be a continuous evaluation process and continuous monitoring, and the project never finishes. Like in traditional software development, we shipped a project, we put it in production, it's done. But here we always need this continuous improvement or monitoring process. So it's another aspect. And obviously, it depends on the organization. I'm not saying each organization should have it or has it, but for big ones, of course, they have this risk team or audit team. Or the ethic, in ideal
Data
world, you
ethics,
can say like ethicist,
Yeah.
like AI ethicist, a team. I'm pretty sure this role already exists in
Yes.
few places,
Yeah.
and this will be more and more. We will see in every organization they might have someone, because they need to oversee the whole thing end to
Yes.
end, right?
Yes. And I think it's even more important in, like you mentioned, highly regulated environment. That's there's actually an obligation for those risk and compliance team to actually be fully involved in these AI projects and tools that are being built for the business, whether it's internal facing or external facing. It's even, external facing, it's actually a lot more, it's even more important, but still also for internal facing projects.
Yeah.
So it's about responsible deployment, but also now I think you're introducing the idea of continuous governance. So it's not like a once-off check. It's like you have to continuously be governing the systems that you have built. So does this then potentially introduce the need to have not only humans governing or governance as a human responsibility, but also maybe AI systems joining the team?
Yeah.
AI teammates?
Definitely, like only human, even in, let's say, AI not in the scene, still only with human governance, it will be hard to track. It is hard to track because there are human errors. There are how much a human can do, and this is not consistent across all humans, right? People have many,
Different
everyone
ways.
has different ways
of interacting with the tool.
yeah.
Yeah.
So the tool is like, we cannot avoid the need of tool here, but that's a very good point that you mentioned, that will that tool be AI enabled or not? That's another. So it's kind of a chicken egg problem, right? Like we are
Yes.
governing AI using AI.
Yes.
But again, we cannot avoid that. I
Yeah.
think we start accepting that and make the things better for that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, great. And then, so moving on to the conversations that we would have from a leadership perspective. You mentioned the various teams and executive sponsors, etc. They're not always going to have maybe the technical expertise. So how do you balance between being technically credible while also speaking the business stakeholder language?
Yeah. I'm sure there are many ways to do that. One thing I'm a fan of, which I kind of did also in my previous role, even if it's talking to business people, always be prepared to go with some data-driven insights. Like if you can show some preliminary results or some options that, okay, if with this data we are trying to solve this problem, this is one way to do it, this shows this type of result, and is another way to do it, let's pick one. That always makes the conversation faster. Like be prepared to meet the team with some insights.
Yeah.
Already pre-work should be done. And also another thing I found really useful in my experience, to talk to both teams separately first, to give a bit more understanding of how things work,
Okay.
a bit more upskilling, a bit more literacy on that topic, because the person who is working on that knows the best than any other
Yes.
team, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of the responsibility to also make them understand what it is. Talk separately, then bring everyone together with some insights.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I guess like what you're trying to say is, even though those two teams will have to come together to provide the insight that is needed to go ahead with the project, these teams have, you know, also other things to worry about. So by providing the concept and making sure that they all can translate the vision into their own language, which makes them, what will make them understand from their perspective what is that is required from them. Then when they come together, it's just much easier
Yeah.
to bring those opinions
Yeah.
into one place and kind of like speaking the same language and seeing the problem or fleshing out what's needed so that they can take some actions.
Yeah.
And another important thing is tying those back to the actual business objective. Say if we decide some metric, for example, okay, we want to increase our website visit rate this much percentage, for example.
Yes.
So whatever search improvement we did, for example, in the website, if we can show them how that is tied to the actual business objective, that always it's then basically talking to their language. Their goal is to increase that, so
Yeah.
how this is making it happen.
Yes.
And another important thing which one of my mentors suggested me, which is sometimes I feel that which is so important, that always do the hypothesis first. Like what can happen, do the scenario planning for different scenario, what could be the possible outcome, and what is the hypothesis basically. Because the AI projects, without starting the project or without working on it, we might not know what could be the actual outcome, but we should have some ideas.
Yes.
And when we start working, there could be a big surprise. That's an edge case. But
Yeah.
at least there could be some common hypothesis. Talk about that and make them understand that the end result of this project could be a go or no go. It's not always the case that it's a
100%.
successful
Yeah.
deployment.
Yeah. And I think that's quite interesting, Shaila, that you mentioned that, because I think, Renee, you've also spoken about how within organizations you've seen how there's kind of two buckets of projects when it comes to AI. It's those projects that are very much aligned to the business goals. The hypothesis is more firmed up, and the positive outcome is everyone is like, okay, we're probably 80% sure this is going to be the outcome. And then there are the other ones where it's very experimentational. Is that again the same methodology that you would take, or do those ones necessarily always have to align with the organization's goals?
Yeah, it's I would say, like, of course, like the align with the organization's goal. That is, of course, that should be the case for everything.
Everything. Yeah.
And based on hypothesis, as you mentioned, like the 80% we know that this will be working. We just need to develop it and make sure that it works. But there will always be some part which needs proper experimentation. And I think I cannot stress this enough because that I saw in my previous experience that proper contingency plan is so important. Like in traditional development, we could plan that, okay, we will ship this feature in 3 months. This is the breakdown, like development time, testing time, done. But for AI, when there is AI involved, there should be a big chunk of time allocated for this experimentation. And the end of the experimentation should be that decision point, that go, no go, or what exactly we are trying to do, and do the planning, proper project planning after that. So otherwise it brings lots of frustration. Yeah, it's cost involved, like you are going beyond your budget in terms of money, right, or time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like a very specific time box experimentation period that is unique to the AI projects. Okay, great. And so now looking at a scenario where there was a lack of alignment between cross-functional teams, lack of governance across functional teams. Can you give us an example if you've experienced it, and also how you dealt with that scenario?
Yeah, it's kind of the same that we just talked about. It's came from that experience. Like I think the major experience that I had was the misalignment of the ultimate metrics of the solution, like what we are trying to achieve. From the data science perspective, we thought that we are using better insights to do something, but maybe the business didn't want that. Business had something else in mind. So that this metric alignment was not proper and it was not upfront. We came to that discussion at the end of the project. So already then we did our things, but they are not happy with the outcome. But this conversation should happen a lot earlier. So that, I mean, of course, on that project, we couldn't mitigate it because the time is already passed. But next time when we do that, that could be the
main
things,
thing that's focused on right at the beginning.
But would you say the one of the reason why it was the case was because, I guess, with some teams, you tend to see that business alignment will come from either would most likely come from like a product owner who is part of that specific team that is working on developing a solution. So was that the missing piece, or was like I'm sure there was no ill intention. They were trying to build something that was actually a feature that will help the business. But that misalignment, was it because there wasn't the right person to lead the conversation, or would you say it's just just scientists just wanting to do science and not being bothered?
Yeah, I think the later part was a bit important there. That okay, most of the time the tech people, we wanna do cool stuff. We wanna build something without verifying, do we need it? But in this particular example, I would say that was kind of first of a kind AI project on the whole team. So maybe none of us were aware of that things might change or things might turn out as we don't want to be. So that lack of experience, I would say, for a lot of people involved in that project, maybe that was the first AI project, including me. So that's why I think I would say it was lack of experience.
Yeah, right, okay. But so lack of experience, but what came out of it was obviously a solution. Wasn't there now a way to try to fit that into the business, or literally the solution was completely going against? Because obviously I don't think all of you together combined were building something that was maybe more aligned with, I don't know, university or an academic use case. It was it had a business lens.
Yeah, business lens, yeah.
But there was somehow like, do you think also like from the the other side,
Mm-hmm.
they just didn't really try to spend a bit more time to understand how they can absorb that into the business.
In that particular example, all it required was the change of the narrative. Like, how are we seeing it? We didn't change the solution at all at the end. We deployed it because that was important, but it was the narrative, like, okay, why we are doing this for this product.
Right, yeah.
That changed. That kind of made it all right, looking all right. No one was right or wrong here,
Yeah.
but that made sense.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's cool. Yeah. I think that's usually at the end of the day, us humans, like you said, sometimes you might say one thing
Mm-hmm.
and then you go to the person next door and then they tell you that in a different way, and whatever, you know, Janet or, you know, next door told you the story sounds different. You are more receptive to that story and making it, and makes you understand further what needs to be done compared to, you know, what the previous person had told you. So,
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Now I just want to shift gears a little bit, maybe tapping into your engineering background. When it comes to organizations deciding on what technology to use, specifically AI technology, is it also now important to ask those questions because not all models are created equal? The reason I say that is because AI models need to fit the application use case and the business requirements, right? When it comes to security, compliance, etc. What is your viewpoint on thinking that you can just grab any AI model and use it within the organization? What are some of the things that we need to think about in the context of AI governance that help us to make the right decisions on what technology we take on? Use?
Yeah, I don't have the answer, to be frank, because this is something we are trying to also experiment and learn that, okay, what makes sense. But definitely it depends on the organization, the scale of the organization, right? Like if it's a very small and medium business, they do not have the bandwidth to experiment enough or fine tune their own model, or of course not training their own model. That's a very far-fetched idea. Then they will have to rely on the off-the-shelf model. And of course, the big players who are providing us the models, they are trying to be transparent, right? We have enough information about what's happening behind the scene, or what are their governance process, like they are using our data to train, or they're capturing things or what or not. So at that scale, if I'm a small scale, I have to rely on those. So basically I don't have much choice there. But for big organization or whoever, they wanna do their things on their own, that's a very different story, right? Now then you have more bandwidth to experiment with, like what you want to do. But still I don't think how many organizations are doing their own model, especially in this generative AI era. Basically they are taking an off-the-shelf one and doing their fine-tuning, or maybe putting more guardrails there, however they want to use it. So that's, I mean, if we pick a specific solution, we can go on a very detailed discussion, but high level, these are the principles, right?
And so what is your viewpoint on an organization using open source versus, like you mentioned, more of the big players out there? When it comes to governance and being able to say, okay, they do all the right things, so we are confident in using their models.
And I think before you answer that question, there was an article that I saw, or I probably watched it on a podcast. So when DeepSeek came out, obviously that was open source, if you can compare to the closed source that you get from the Anthropic and OpenAI, and it was revolutionary, but it has so much
Security concerns,
compliance
concerns,
failure. So you know, people were able to retrieve, I don't know, API keys and so on by just questioning DeepSeek. So yes. Now, that's also like the little sprinkle I needed to add for you to.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not to say closed source model, but I'm sure there's a case for open source model.
Yeah. I mean, in open source model also, I think people like me, I'll talk about my personal view. Like, if who is the source of this? I always have a bit of bias to the big
Yeah.
players, like the OpenAI. They recently did the open source
Open
model,
source
right,
model,
for
yeah.
their GPT as well. So if it is coming from them, definitely we are a bit biased that okay, they are maintaining all those proper rules regulations there. So I will be a bit biased to use that. Yeah, but in terms of like in an organization when people choose open source or closed source, it again depends on the use case and your scale. Like
Yeah.
open source model, if I want to use, then definitely there would be a use case that I can modify it, I can do my own things there, then it makes sense to use that. Otherwise I could go for the closed source
Closed
one.
source,
Yeah.
yeah.
So is it because I think from what I'm hearing, I feel like there's a bit of bias because you've been in enterprise. Say if you had spent maybe since out of university, IBM consultant, and then you just happen to had been hired by DeepMind, would you still think that way, or would you think still, like, would you still give that same answer you gave? Because it sounds like your answer is also biased towards being in enterprise and making sure that everything is, like compliant,
But then
structured.
but like, even going back to what we said the definition of governance was, is to have processes in place that ensure trust.
Yes.
I think that trust element, so if open source can provide that trust layer or the trust
No, but then
requirements.
with open source, the reason why it's open source is also because you can tweak it and add your own flavor. With closed source, you take it as it comes. and
So,
you
but
just-
but then now it's talking
It's-
about the pros and cons when it comes to governance. Pros and cons, like what are you willing to risk in terms of your governance
Yeah.
processes if you're using an open source that might not have the security requirements, compliance requirements, but it can do the most amazing. It's
Yeah,
super
but-
powerful. It's cost effective.
But then the thing is with DeepSeek, it's still a pretty good model. It's just how now as an organization, knowing that that's the case, how do you ensure that you overcome that risk challenge? And that's the reason why it's open
So
source,
then it's
because now you can
resources.
you now need to build resources that will internally build guardrails around that specific model you have, versus an open AI and
Off
and
the
a
shelf.
topic off the shelf, which
Yeah.
already gives you
Those built-in guardrails.
those building guardrails,
Yeah.
and you just have to now add more specific to your
To
organization.
your organization and the business case.
I mean, that's
or
the one.
use
That's why you
case.
were talking about fine tuning.
Yeah.
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 So that's why I was asking, because being in a heavy regulated like financial services and all these other industries like healthcare, I don't think open source models are going to be the winner there. So closed source models is definitely what they're always looking
Yeah.
for.
Spot on. Yeah.
Governance is such a tricky topic, and many
Yeah.
businesses don't really understand that, and
Yeah.
and some, and I'm talking about AI governance. I'm not like just
Yeah.
in general, people understand governance, but AI governance is such a tricky topic.
I think probably not everyone understands governance either. And the reason I say that is because AI is becoming so front and center within all the organizations, whether it's like for internal purposes or internal use, or because you're developing a first party product that has a lot of AI integrated from your third parties, or you're building AI into it. It's becoming more in the forefront, and now people have to understand it. I think in the past you could sort of get away with not understanding it, but now if you are building AI solutions, or if you're working with third parties that are then building on into your solution that have AI, you need to understand the governance. Otherwise, you're going to run into security risks. You're going to run into compliance issues, and again that whole misalignment with business goals.
Mm.
But eventually, I think what we're probably going to see is the potential lawsuits that might come out of
Definitely.
AI misuse of AI systems. So what is your viewpoint on that? Like, do you think that's coming on the horizon, specifically for those industries that are more regulated, where if you have an AI solution doing the wrong thing, going against transparency, fairness, accountability, should we expect lawsuits in relation to that in the near future?
Yeah. Before that, I was going to ask you, like, what AI governance mean to you, in your view?
Yeah. In my view, I think it's providing guidance on moving from idea to implementation in a way that aligns with the business goals, in a way that ensures you're considering security or risk overall, and in a way that ensures that there's compliance and regulation considerations, and making sure that it's transparent, it's fair, and there's accountability for your customers. So if it's a B2C as well as if it's a B2B, so that if anyone comes and asks you any questions, you are able to answer those questions, because throughout the entire life cycle of that solution, you have had those guardrails in place.
Yes.
It should not be a scenario where, let's say, for example, if you have an HR system or solution that you've built and there's some bias within that system, and people come to you and they say, well, you've been only letting X type of candidates through to the final round. Explain that to me. And then you say, well, the AI did it. We have no idea how it did it.
Yeah.
So that already is a red flag.
Yeah.
And so I think, for me, that is ultimately what AI governance is about, that trust.
Yeah, I think you answered that the best. Like, you almost cover every aspect of it, right? Like in my mind, what I was like thinking that if you ask me what AI governance is, I would possibly talk about clarity, which of course transparency and all this stuff. Like and also it's the every step of this whole end-to-end process, like clarity. And to me, another important, also I'm taking from you, the word was I would say compliance. It feels like every step in the process is compliant with the rules or the regulations. So that to think, do you think speed is also a part of AI governance?
I think governance enables smart speed. They always talk about speed kills, but we still have,
Smart speed.
all the sports car companies coming up with next generation of sports cars. Like, there's a reason, right? We have the Grand Prix and all of that. Those drivers have been trained on how to drive at fast speed. They've been given the rules. There's lots of safety regulations around that. And so I think we can apply the same thing when it comes to technology or AI, in that we need to ensure our people are safe sports car drivers, so that we can move quickly, but also really get the opportunity to take on everything that AI has to bring. So I can imagine that if we're able to trust AI so much within our organizations or within our lives, AI can do so much for us. It can book appointments for us. It can help us with our, financial literacy. It can help us notify if our health is not in check and book us doctor's appointments. But for all of that to happen, we need to have the safety in place. We need to be those drivers.
Oh, you're very good with analogy, right? I love this sport car example. Yeah.
Yes, no, that's very good.
Yeah.
I think I also have just another question. Might not be fall in that same direction, but for governance and AI governance, do we think that anyone need to have an AI background to get into AI governance? Because that's because we spoke about cost disciplinary, team to strengthen the AI governance in any organization. The challenge that now we have is these other teams that were not AI focused for the past 12 months, all of a sudden have to now be fully involved in the AI bit. So does that mean some of the tech team with AI people have to move into those teams, or those teams all of a sudden now to be upscaling to be able to get into the understand the governance?
Literacy could be a word right here. AI literacy.
Yeah.
Like, at least, I mean, it's a new concept to many of us. So what it means, I would not overcomplicate it, but at least the basic ideas, like, again, going back to this non-deterministic output, that thing that it does some prediction. We don't know what exactly input output is not fixed. It can change. Basic understanding of those, and definitely that continuous continuous governance, that need of that, to understand that how much you need to understand what AI is. I think up to that level, like in the whole cross-functional team, the level of literacy will vary, but at least we all need to understand some common baseline or shared understanding that what it is, and what are the challenges or risks if we do not have proper governance in place, that thing. And I sorry, I couldn't not mention again about this analogy of the sport car thing, like the speed thing. Like, there is a misconception, right, that governance slows down the speed. But I think the right word, of course, we all know that is the bad governance slows down the process.
Yes.
But the good governance, like, sometimes we might spend it's a cost benefit analysis, you can say, like if we want to create a good governance process, of course it will take some time, but that will reduce so much overhead along the
In the future.
journey, right? Like, so much rework you could avoid lots of pitfalls that might come across. With the proper governance in place, you are saving time from future.
Yeah, that's really true. Setting yourself up with the building blocks that enable you to have a strong foundation. And just going back on the AI literacy, that's quite interesting for me, because I think there's different levels of AI literacy. There's like the end user AI literacy, and then there's on the other side, the development side of AI literacy, or the building of AI literacy. So in both your experiences, have you seen both types in organizations now becoming mainstream? I can say from my experience, I've heard of organizations doing AI immersion days where they let everyone across the business experiment with the tools, the end user tools. What is your experience?
I would say same. Like, this is a new trend I'm seeing, but from my friends' experience, what I'm hearing, like, every organizations are doing this, right? Especially lots of newsletter, lots of content. I mean, ultimately at the end of the day, you have to read it, but they are trying to do their best to equip you with all those necessary information and all sorts of training in place.
And what is it that you're seeing now from the building side when it comes to AI, when it comes to the cross-functional teams? What kind of initiatives are you seeing that are building that AI literacy?
So again, like, for tech team, it's more, I mean, we are in that sense, like, I was talking to a friend that day, like, that day is gone, that, okay, I have studied, I got my degree, and now I'm working. I can do the same thing throughout my life. This is not the case right now. Like, we are learning and doing. So I personally am feeling busier than ever, maybe because of the nature, because it's not only I'm doing, I have to read a lot of things, I have to understand a lot of things, then I have to do the things. So do we have that contingency plan that throughout my day I should have some time for learning, right? So this is challenging. I'm pretty sure all the organizations are thinking about it, and that's why so much bandwidth nowadays. I mean, not everyone has it, but whoever has it, they are giving that space to upskill, to learn. Some organizations are doing, like, okay, Friday 4 hours, you keep it for your upskilling. which is so important.
Yeah, that's
yeah.
a really good takeaway. That organizations who aren't doing that and who do want to implement AI within their products or services, they need to provide time for their workforce to upskill on the go.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think from your research background, it comes quite naturally, I suppose, but also making sure that those who don't have that kind of background are guided through that process of continuously upskilling within the organization.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and just to add on to what you said, I think in some instances you see businesses and internal teams, especially AI teams, starting to build all these mini POCs that get exposed to different part of the business, and get presented into town halls and company-wide type of like presentation, which can start triggering some interest, especially if from a leadership level, there's a mandate for every part of the business to identify how they can best use AI. Now you kind of need now you kind of giving everyone the power to explore. So now when you get people exposed to some of the things that can be done with AI, then it gets more interest, knowing that they have the green light from the senior leadership team. So now those teams at their level start to be a bit more inclined to, tap into that literacy. And even if you don't necessarily have the whole team skilled up, you have one or two people within the business. I think what the blanket term is AI champions, that they start creating in those teams that becomes the ones that would drive the change within their team, because they have context to what's happening in their team, but then they are the one that are tasked to understand the AI bit and bring that knowledge back to the team and repurpose it so that it makes sense for that specific team.
So good.
That's
Yeah.
true.
That's so good. I wish, eventually I think that will be more and more in practice, but that's a very good idea. I'm seeing that in place right now for a particular topic. We kind of, there is a to-go person that they can fill us in, because otherwise how much one person can learn.
Exactly. We can't all have all the answers, right? And that's again why we have multiple multidisciplinary teams in the first place, because we can't all be SMEs unless you are an AI.
That is true. Yes.
Unless you're an AI. Awesome.
I think
maybe
before you get into that, there's one thing I think, just tapping into your PhD and research part of it. I know, these big organization, OpenAI and Anthropic, they now understand the power of what they're building. I think Anthropic has been probably the one that has been quite upfront in terms of research that they're doing. One of them, which I found quite interesting, I never got a chance to get my head around it, is basically them trying to use neuroscience concept to actually go and understand what these AI models are made of and how they think. Because now we're seeing that people are building AI agents, and agent basically is still being controlled by an LLM. So that LLM is the one that is, through self-reflection, take actions. So now you need to be able to use neuroscience principles to understand how these AI models are taking actions, and perhaps using that to, I think I just saw just now, they've come up with something that they call constitutional AI.
Okay.
Which is quite interesting. I think it's kind of bringing a bit of the deep research in the AI field and kind of bringing that back into the industry, and using that to feed into the AI governance, because at the end of the day, they're trying to make sure, I think for them, it's telling people, hey, we are putting out these amazing models that you guys can use, and we are also aware that we need to provide you with, maybe like a list of cards or principles that we know when we build those models, that's what they were trained on, and that's what we made them aware of. So that when you implement within your organization from a governance perspective, that knowledge can now feed into your governance machine that you're creating.
Yeah. So it's almost like what we talked about earlier about closed source and open source pre-built governance. So
Yeah.
that
The closed source are
Yeah.
basically, the closed source models are being created by companies that are basically product companies. So they're making sure that their product is still being used.
yeah.
You can go on and use your open source model, but for you to get to that stage, they have like billions of dollars of
To
investment
invest into that.
to invest into that, and you come up with your 5 PhD AI engineers coming together, and you want them. I mean, DeepSeek. I mean, I forgot the name of the company behind DeepSeek, but they managed to do that, but it fell short because of enterprise. Anyway, I've just found it very interesting. I just wanted to bring that up because I think, for someone who came from a research background, you might find it interesting. I find it interesting. It's just that I never got a chance to sit down and read through it. Have you heard about that?
No.
You should look it up. It's called just if you look up constitutional AI, that was actually released a very long time ago. But the recent article on that topic was in March 2025. It's called Tracing the Thoughts of Large Language Model. And then they had I think there was also like a YouTube video which was released actually a week ago by Anthropic, and it's called Interpretability, Understanding How AI Models Think. And that's like a full hour of them going through that. It's quite fascinating.
Awesome.
Sounds really interesting.
Yeah.
I think before there was talk of how they wanted to understand how AI thought, or how the thinking process of AI and how it learned, and they likened it to how a baby learns, like from the first day they are born and baby graduate, the first 2 years of their lives. How do they learn? And I suppose it might be similar to how AI learns as well, and probably that's where we're tapping into the neuroscience aspect of it. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I'd say like understanding how things work always helps, because it's not a magic. Like it's kind
It's
of
not a
black box.
Yeah.
But still there are something is happening for a reason. Maybe we couldn't interpret everything. Like this explainability is a big bottleneck of these models, right? Like why it's coming up with something, we cannot just trace back and show a full trace that okay, this is where it came from. Even traditional machine learning model, in many cases we could explain why it happened, right? But here this is a problem. That's another very important aspect of governance in generative AI era.
Yes.
Like we are talking about AI governance, but AI has different ways of working, right? A traditional AI or generative AI. I think with each era, it's getting more complex and
yes.
coming up with more flavors, more aspects to it.
Definitely. So just to conclude, what would you like to leave with our listeners in terms of AI governance, how they can go about making sure that their AI governance practices are in place within their organizations or within their own business, within their own projects? And also a piece of advice when it comes to potentially some problem areas they might come across and how they can overcome that.
Yeah, I think we covered pretty much everything. I think few things, that was like I was trying for opportunity to mention this. One was that, I don't know if that's the direct answer to your question, but the thing was like, anyone involved in this whole thing, we shouldn't be afraid to say no or to say, oh, not yet, it's not ready. Because a lot of time we spend so much time on it, and then we want to make it work, but sometimes the decision could be that no, it will not work. So that is something I'm finding a bit interesting, because I'm getting this vibe from my peers or whoever I'm talking to, working with, that when we are working, obviously we are trying to solve a business problem,
Yes.
but the outcome could be it will not work. So that is becoming more than ever. So that's one thing I wanted to mention. Another thing about leaders, especially, I would say, why I'm saying leaders is also a very big term, but at least the executive sponsors or who are in the decision making or in charge of finance. One thing is the reimagination could be a big thing, because I think we had a chat about it with you once, that a lot of things, there are a lot of legacy systems. The systems were not built to be used by AI, right? So now we can spend time to reimagine whole thing so that AI can work better, or we can try to make things work on these legacy things incrementally. So there should be a decision point, and there is no one solution. It will be depending on the use case, depending on the scale of the organization or the skill set of the organization. You decide, do you want to keep this legacy thing and work on top of it incrementally, or do you want to do it things fresh, AI native? Everything starts with AI. In the long run, it could
It
be.
used to be cloud native, now it's AI native.
Right? Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, very
Fantastic.
good,
Thank you
very
so much
good.
for your time, Shaila. And thanks again for everyone tuning in today. And we hope that you can, if you have not already watched the other episodes, please tune in to our previous episodes and remember to like, share, and we'll see you in the next one. Thank you.
See you, team.